When my friend was about 10 years old, he witnessed one of the most horrifying occurrences in his life, and it still haunts him today, whenever I mention something related to it. Anyways, for personal issues, let's say my friend's name was Matt. Now, Matt to this day is one of the most bravest and courageous people I have ever met in my life, but when he was about the age of 10, he was a bit more timid than brave. One night when Matt decided to have a sleepover at his place, he invited me and 3 of our other friends to accompany him. We had a whole list of fun activities and games to play during the day and into the night. All of us except Matt agreed that we'd stay up late and tell ghost stories to each other. Matt disliked the whole idea of ghost stories, or any bedtime story for that matter. Matt's choices were always overruled, even though it was his house. Anyways, throughout the day, we all decided to play a few games, and considering the fact that Matt lived in an enormous house, made it all the more fun and enjoyable. The only rule that was given to us by Matt's parents was to keep quiet while we played and not to break anything in the house. Matt's mother was terribly busy most of the time, and spent most of her time in her study, writing, so she usually kept to herself. His dad, on the other hand, worked as a coroner as a part-time job. It was about midday when we all decided to play hide-and-seek, especially if your house is as huge as Matt's. It was our friend Sam's turn to count to 50, and then find us. The 4 of us split into 2 groups because we thought it would be a better decision to hide close by, so if one of us was caught, Sam wouldn't look twice in the same area, and also Matt was terrified to hide by himself in his own house. Since the 4 of us decided to split into groups of 2, Matt quietly whispered to me that there's a cellar downstairs in the basement where his dad always kept to himself. It was his dad's personal working space. Matt told me that it would be the perfect place to hide. I said sure, why not, and followed behind him. At this point I felt a bit scared and nervous, but also curious at the same time. Or was it his intention to take me there with him the entire time? Anyways, I was hooked and continued following behind him. As soon as we headed downstairs, Matt reached over to turn on the light switch, but of course it wouldn't work. Now I definitely had a bad idea about this. "Let's just find another place to hide, Matt," I said frantically. "Oh, come on, I'll just get a flashlight and then I'll be fine," he replied. I didn't like it one bit, so I followed him to get his flashlight and slowly proceeded downstairs to the cellar. Once we reached the bottom, we were directly facing an old wooden door. To my surprise, the door just seemed to look rather outdated. Considering the fact that Matt's entire house was renovated, this was the only exception. I nudged Matt to go on and open the door, and he ever so slightly turned the doorknob as if he was a snail. The door began to squeak its way open and came to a steady halt. The first thing I immediately realized was the engraved marks that seemed to be made by a human. They were on the backside of the door. I looked at Matt in disbelief as I saw a skeleton in the dark corner. His bottom half was completely torn off as if there was no flesh, meat, or anything, just bones. His upper half had at least some skin on it, but it looked as if it was ripped open by an animal. I looked at Matt in shock, and he stared blankly at me. He swore to me that he didn't know what was in here because his dad is the only one allowed to be inside of the cellar. Matt started shaking and sobbing. He then let out a scream and burst into tears, which alerted his mother, and she came running down the stairs. She looked at the both of us and asked us, "What are you 2 doing down here? It's forbidden." She brought us upstairs and told us to sit down and be quiet. She then proceeded to tell us that what we witnessed down there was all fake, and none of that was real. We both began crying in unison as Matt's mother called all of our parents to come pick us up. To this day, Matt never speaks of it, as if he never seen it, and whenever I try bringing it up, he just ignores me. I guess both of us left that experience behind us and wish it had never happened.